Hi, Felix. It's so great to sit down and talk to you. Would you be able to introduce yourself briefly and explain the work that you do?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. So I'm Felix. I'm currently a research scientist between Harvard and NTT, and my background's in computational cognitive science. So most of my recent research has largely been focused on building new methods for evaluating, interpreting, and training neural models inspired by methods from cognitive science and neuroscience. And in my PhD, I worked on theories and models of how people physically reason about the world and how we can use theoretical computer science to make sense of human thought and the basic components of human cognition. And then in a past life, before my PhD, I used to work on building algorithms for growing neural networks similar to the way that we think evolution grows real brains.
Wow, that's amazing. With that in mind, what session of the summit are you organizing, and what are some of the big open problems in AI that you'll be discussing?
Yeah. So I'm organizing the AI breakthroughs in industry session, specifically the panel on whether industry does research better than academia right now. And so when it comes to the open problems, I think there are a lot of problems right now. And technically speaking, I think they're namely in the space of evaluation. So, like, how do we know whether a model is doing what we want it to do? Interpretability. So, being able to understand why a model does what it does. And then data. So, in the event that a model doesn't behave the way we want it to, how do we kind of steer it in the right direction, either through training or tuning or other methods? But I said I was focusing on an industry panel. And so this panel focuses on another open problem in the field, which is really about how we organize people around research. And this is all motivated from an interesting thing that's happened over the last 15 years, where basically it's been demonstrated, something unintuitive has been demonstrated, which is that places outside of academia can have some of the largest and most important impacts on basic research in AI. And so this implies a couple of questions that I think a lot of people are asking. So the first one is whether that was just a fluke or a bit of chance, or whether we should simply expect this to be the kind of gold standard for basic research right now, which is that academia might train scientists or apprentices in science to then just be kind of shipped off to industry labs where the real science happens, right? That's one perspective some people have. Um, but another important question is, what are the roles that academia and industry now play in basic research, given that you have these industry players that arguably do just as good science as academia, if not better, right? And then given what those roles are right now, the question then is like, what should those roles be? So like, how should they interact? How should they collaborate? Should they collaborate? What should that look like? Things like this.
That's cool. So seeing how the playing field's kind of shifting nowadays, what are some of the big developments that you're excited about in the next few years?
Yeah, so maybe there's two perspectives here. So, or two ways to answer this question. So, technically speaking, I think I'm quite interested in the stuff that I'm working on right now, which is a big space. A lot of people are working on this. So, the questions of what are good evaluations, right? We have all of these really grand sort of pitches for evaluations for things like general intelligence. So, ArcAGI is a great example. Um, but it seems that it's not clear what these evaluations are actually measuring, right? You could score really well on certain evaluations for things, and it turns out that the behavior you would expect from a high score in the real world doesn't actually hold. And so I had a couple of these experiences when I was a student researcher at DeepMind, and a lot of people have had experiences like this when they've been at other industries as well, or just in the lab. The second one is interpretability. No one really knows why models do what they do. And so understanding the internal organization of these models is a key, I think, pillar of the next couple of years of AI. And then the third one is data. So we've found that we can actually take large amounts of data from the internet or different kinds of places, and we can actually get models to sort of approximate that distribution of data in a meaningful way. But no one can really answer the question of what does that data set represent actually, right? So if I were to tell you I need a model that has something like human level reasoning or human level social intelligence or the ability to do arithmetic, it's not actually, no one can give you a really certain answer as to what kind of data you should show that model to give it those abilities. And so those three pillars of evaluations, interpretability, and data are like the three technical pillars that I'm excited for over the next couple of years. And I think a lot of cognitive science, psychology, neuroscience, philosophy is going to have a big impact on that. The other answer for this question is the organizational stuff. So, kind of like what we were just discussing, I think I'm excited to see what kinds of conversations evolve between major industry players and academics. Maybe there can be new kinds of organizational routes between the two. So, like students that are PhD students both at an institution and a university, um, advised by people from the two. I've seen that in small numbers for a few people. You could also imagine special fellowships, special collaborations. It could be the case that you could be a full time employee at an industry while getting a PhD, and the industry basically covers the costs for the university, but your thesis is more in line with whatever it is that the industry is trying to do. That could be another model. There's also a lot of questions here around, given the recent events with the lack of funding, at least in the United States for science, and then other places like Korea and a few other countries, what role could private funding play when it comes to basic research? Like, should VCs step up and pay the bill? After all, they do invest in deep tech, and deep tech is effectively getting a bunch of scientists to do science to then build out something that's profitable. So that could be an interesting avenue to explore as well. And so I'm kind of excited to see those two kinds of high level categories evolve over the next couple of years.
That's so cool. Amazing, amazing stuff, Felix. So excited to see you at the conference. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be fun.